As I was unpacking in my new home, the doorbell rang. So I thought the furniture I had ordered had arrived and went to open the door. Oh, Sophia? There my mother-in-law was, standing with a broad smile on her face. Behind her, my father-in-law and my husband, Steve, stood silently. Sophia barged in and started looking around the house. Oh, what a lovely geek you are. We moved because it's a 5-room new home, you know. It was me who convinced Steve. He's saying he's okay with living with you again. Be grateful. As Sophia boasted, my husband, Steve, came forward and murmured in a low voice. Well, I suppose I can forgive you. I couldn't help but burst into laughter. What's so funny? That's quite rude. Sophia's face turned red with anger. That's when I told her the truth. Because, Sophia. I'm actually single now. What? The look on their faces at that moment still makes me laugh when I think about it. It seems there are people in the world who interpret things in a way that suits them. My name is Abby. I'm a 32-year-old ordinary office worker. I met my husband, Steve, 2 years ago through our friend and got married. He worked for a top company and was kind to everyone without being arrogant. I was moved by him and was convinced I could be happy with him. However, it didn't take long for me to realize that was a big misunderstanding. Living together, I realized he had no will of his own and always checked with me before doing anything. Is this tie okay for today? Should I take an umbrella? At first, I thought it was cute that he listened to others' opinions. But it became tiresome as it continued every day. I remember during dates. It was often me who had to decide on the menu because he couldn't decide. Even the marriage was initiated by me saying, I'm almost 30, and considering the age to have children, it's better if we get married. He obediently agreed. It seemed he had never made decisions on his own, having been sent to many cram schools since childhood, and graduating from a private high school, and a university which did not require him to pass entrance exams. Even his current job was recommended by a professor. Moreover, having been on the elite path, he thought chores were not his job. And naturally, he didn't do any housework, only giving orders like, Abby, the light bulb is out. We're out of toilet paper. Then there were my in-laws. It seems they weren't financially well off and had struggled a lot to send their only son, Steve, to a private school. They would come to our house every week asking for money, saying, Steve, we're a bit short this month. Could you lend us about $300? Steve would give them money without any questions. It's good to take care of one's parents, but Steve didn't contribute to our household expenses at all. This is my company's housing, so you should pay for everything else, was his logic. It's true that living in a 2-room apartment in LA for $200 rent is fortunate. But it's ridiculous to expect me to pay for everything else. No matter how much I protested, he refused to pay a penny. Despite being indecisive in daily life, he was firm on this point, which turned out to be instigated by his mother. I accidentally overheard Sophia advising Steve, if you spoil your wife, she'll get ahead of herself. Don't give her any extra money. Yeah, I understand, Mama. I'm doing it right. Moreover, Steve called her a mom in front of me, but Mama when they were alone. I had a suspicion that he might be a bit of a mama's boy. I began to wonder if this marriage was a mistake, but after consulting with my sister, who lived nearby and already had a family, she laughed it off, saying, well, the company he works for is top-notch, and he's not violent, right? So, you're probably well off. After all, men don't do housework, and they're all mama's boys. Thus, I convinced myself that it was all right. And I had a dream. Having lived in apartments all my life, owning a beautiful house was my dream. To achieve this, I had saved diligently from my 20s, foregoing trips and doing video editing side jobs in addition to my regular job. If I remained married to Steve, we could get a substantial mortgage. I told myself this and worked hard at my job, housework, and side jobs. Steve would often go out for entertainment on weekends. I used that time for my side jobs, and my savings grew steadily. The sudden visits from Sophia, who would criticize me for always playing on the computer and slacking off just because your husband is not around, became frequent. Annoyed by my non-compliance, she would often demean me, saying, "You should be grateful that someone like Steve, an elite, married you, who works at a third-rate company." Truthfully, my salary and side job income exceeded Steve's, but I kept quiet to avoid complications. It turned out that Steve's father had been laid off years ago and was only doing temporary jobs, barely working. Steve's parents lived in a small, old wooden apartment that could be demolished at any time. I visited once, and the state of their home was such that they had no right to complain about my housekeeping. Despite having time, Sophia seemed too lazy to work part-time. And there were days when Steve's parents would come over to eat the dinner I prepared. Sophia always had complaints whenever she opened her mouth, but I gradually got used to it and learned to ignore her words. I thought all my efforts were for the sake of fulfilling my dream of buying a house. Then, 2 years into the marriage, something very unfortunate happened. The couple I relied on mentally, my sister and her husband, died in a car accident. My sister and I were very close, and I used to visit her house often when I was single. While shocked, I hurriedly contacted Steve to attend the funeral together. But to my surprise, Steve said, "Why do I have to go? I'm busy entertaining my boss right now." "It's your family, right? You can go alone." Losing my dear sister and being treated like a stranger by my own family, I was deeply shocked. I thought marriage was about sharing both happiness and sorrow. But I felt a deep gap between Steve and me. Maybe this person isn't who I thought he was. With these troubling thoughts and the shock of losing my sister, I gradually neglected my household duties. When Sophia came to visit, she insensitively lectured me, noticing my negligence. "Abby, what's going on? The cleaning hasn't been done lately. Are you feeding Steve properly?" When I replied, "I'm sorry, I've had a lot going on. I'm just able to work right now," she cut me off. "Stop making excuses. The primary job of a housewife is to take care of her husband. Your third-rate company job doesn't matter." Finally, doing only the bare minimum of housework, Sophia lost her patience and declared, "I can no longer entrust Steve's care to you. Right?" Steve, when asked, just nodded and did not defend me. Steve's father, also present, looked at the messy room and said, "I didn't think you were such a wife. Steve, you should reconsider." Furthermore, Sophia showed me a divorce form with Steve's name on it and left it on the table. "We're ready to separate at any time. For now, look at this and reflect properly." Seeing that I didn't respond, they thought I was reflecting and left with triumphant faces, saying, "Well, Steve will stay with us for a while. Make sure the house is spotless." Alone, I finally calmed down. I realized I had been suppressing my feelings in the daily rush of work, housework, and taking care of Steve. I looked around the messy room, signed the divorce form with a "all right," and swiftly went to submit it to the city office. Feeling liberated after the clerk mechanically accepted it, I felt exhilarated. It was easier than I thought. I had always pretended not to be hurt by the harsh words of Sophia, but I finally acknowledged the pain I had been feeling. I went to a real estate agent with a lighter step. Fate has a way of working out. I found a house that perfectly matched my ideals. It was a lovely 5-room house with a warmth of wood and a high ceiling. The house, priced at $700,000, seemed to have waited for me due to the lack of buyers, making me feel a sense of destiny. I had saved $200,000 from my 20s and another $100,000 from my side job during the 2 years of marriage, totaling about $300,000 in savings. I made a phone call to discuss my future, and they were happy to assist. Thus, I managed to obtain my dream house while separating from my husband. I prepared for the move, submitted the divorce papers to his company, and remembered that one cannot live in the company housing without being married. The HR department told me the move-out date was in a month, allowing me to prepare at my leisure. During this time, I received no contact from Steve's family. They probably didn't care about me anymore. Feeling relieved, I sent my belongings to my new home and arranged for Steve's belongings to be delivered to his parents' house on the move-out day. I left the keys with the building manager. As I was unpacking in my new home, the doorbell rang, and I thought it was the furniture I had ordered. When I opened the door, there was Sophia, my ex-husband's mother, standing with a broad smile. Behind her were Steve's father and Steve, standing silently. "How did you find this place?" I panicked, but Sophia pulled out a shipping label from my belongings. This was lying inside the company housing. "You're so secretive. If you bought a house, you could have told us." I saw the for sale signs. "It's a 5-room, right?" As she smirked. I cursed my carelessness, but Sophia boldly entered and started looking around the house. Well, it looked nice from the outside. But the inside is also nice, isn't it? Then, workers in uniforms began carrying in boxes. "Wait, what are you doing?" I exclaimed. Unperturbed, Sophia proudly declared, "We're moving into this 5-room new home because I convinced Steve. He said it's okay to live with you again. Be thankful." Steve then timidly added, "Well, I guess I could forgive you." I burst into laughter uncontrollably. "What's so funny?" "That's quite rude," Sophia exclaimed, her face turning red. That's when I told her the truth. "Because, Sophia, I'm actually single now." "What?" The look on their faces was so funny, dumbstruck. Trying to regain composure, Sophia blurted, "What are you saying, Abby? Have you lost your mind? There's no way you'd divorce Steve." "We're from a top company," I calmly replied. "Seems like the misunderstanding is on your side. You and Steve handed me the divorce papers, so I signed my name and filed them the other day, right?" This caused visible shock. "You really filed them?" "We didn't mean for that to happen," Steve stammered, and Steve's father yelled at me. "How could you file for divorce so easily? What were you thinking?" Sophia joined in. "Exactly, we never thought you'd actually go through with it. Go cancel it right now." I was astounded by their reaction. "But you said that I can't take care of Steve anymore. Then it was you two who took him away, right?" Steve's parents then looked away, nervously saying, "Well, that was. We thought it would make you reflect a bit." "Yes, it was all to give you some time to practice your household chores." I shook my head and cut to the chase. "What are you talking about? That was just so you could take Steve's salary for yourselves because you were short on money, wasn't it?" Caught by my accusation, they both choked up. Then Steve defended his parents. "How can you talk to my parents like that?" So I pointed out, "You just ran away to your parents' house because it's convenient not to do any chores, right? You hate dealing with troublesome things." He fell silent and looked down. Next, Sophia tried to calm the situation. "Abby, let's calm down. Marital spats are common. Don't make a big deal out of it. I interrupted her. You're the ones who made a big deal out of it. I was grieving my sister and still managed to work and do as much housework as possible. And you pushed me to the edge, demanding more work and more money. Suddenly, Steve stepped forward, boasting. It's only natural for a lower-class person to serve an elite like me. I was shocked to hear him reveal his true thoughts. Having always been led by others and appearing kind. At his core, Steve must have harbored strong pride from being treated as an elite from a young age. Believing he was different from ordinary people. Feeling no more attachment to him, I felt relieved and declared. I understand. I'll live with my fellow lower-class people. I can't live with you. Steve's parents gritted their teeth, glancing at the lovely 5-room house with resentment. Well, then. Steve deserves someone more suitable. We chose the wrong partner. As she said this, Steve's father panicked. No, our apartment is about to be demolished. We have nowhere to live. Sophia snapped. Be quiet. It'll be fine as long as we have Steve. He got a promotion last month. She hysterically exclaimed their excuses as she, her husband, and their son, along with the bewildered movers, finally left the house. Steve's father looked back at our house regretfully. Later, I heard from my friends that Steve was soon demoted because his only skill was flattering superiors. His incompetence became evident once he was in a managerial position, blaming others for his mistakes. He quickly became a target for layoffs but was transferred to a regional office instead of being fired outright. Frightened by the unfamiliar location, Steve quit, saying, I'd rather change jobs than go there. However, he was shunned by major competitors and repeatedly failed job interviews, severely damaging his pride and leading him into seclusion. Steve's parents, relying on Steve's salary, were devastated when their apartment was demolished, and they were evicted. The troubled family of 3 turned to relatives in the countryside, where they were crammed into one room. And Steve's parents ended up helping with local farming from morning to night. Despite their elite mindset, Steve was scolded by his parents for not working, which is a miserable life by any standard, but they brought it upon themselves. As for me, I invited my parents and 2 nieces to live in the new 5-room house. My sister, who died in an accident last year, left behind 2 young daughters. They had been staying with my parents and avoided the accident. The 2 children were still in kindergarten and elementary school. And although their parents had been taking care of them, they were very fond of me. So, I decided to take this opportunity to take them in. Taking them in was one reason for buying a 5-room house. My parents sold their home and land, contributing about $300,000. So we only needed a $100,000 mortgage, which I could afford. The 2 nieces were delighted with the new house, excitedly claiming their rooms and planning where to put new desks for school. Suddenly having 2 daughters, I was financially comfortable thanks to my side job. My mother mainly took care of the housework, giving me more free time. I'm grateful for the opportunity to repay my parents while raising 2 adorable children. I couldn't help but feel relieved to have cut ties with that family. I plan to work hard for my parents and 2 nieces from now on.